What's going on, everybody? John Gillen here with Silver Sound Guitar. And of course, new year. So, what does that mean? Like, it's time to tune up your chops, get going on a new practice routine. And one of the things I wanted to do was give you some ideas on how you can build that. So, what I've got for you today is going to be a quick set of some warm-ups. About 20-25 minutes if you spend 4 or 5 minutes on each exercise. But the whole point is to start building that left hand, right hand coordination. I'm going to be doing a series here of building your practice routine. So obviously the first thing here we're going to deal with is going to be warm-ups. We'll be looking at chord scales and arpeggios and a host of other things in these next few lessons. So anyway, let's jump to it. Right here, what I've got for you, we're going to be starting out with some stretches. This is something that I find isn't necessarily thought about too much, and the thing is if we start thinking about it properly, it's just going to open up your playing and give you a lot more opportunities and different ways that you can approach the fretboard. So let's jump into it. Now, the first thing I like to do here, and you can follow along with the tabs in the links below. So I like to start kind of on the 5th fret, generally speaking. It's a good middle spot on your fretboard. However, if it's easier for you to start this higher up on, say, the 7th or even the 9th fret, by all means do that, because what we're trying to do is get your hands used to this spread. So this first exercise really isn't designed to be a scale or anything like that. It's just to start getting used to spreading your fingers out. And what you can see is I'm using my 2nd finger to play this 7th fret. And it seems a little counterintuitive. I'm tucking my ring finger here. But the reason is that I can actually spread my hand further right here between these two, and then between my middle finger and my pinky finger as well. So I get a bigger stretch between my pinky finger and my 2nd finger than I do between my 3rd finger and my pinky. Now, are there going to be times where you will use your pinky to stretch away from your 3rd? Absolutely. But that's down the road. So right now, we're going to just jump into this. We're going to start on this 5, 7, 9. And all I'm doing is I'm taking this pattern just straight across the strings. So just like that. Now, with any of these, and especially this one, start slow at first. Make sure you're not going too fast. The point is that you're synchronizing your left hand and your right hand, and that's a big part of everything I'm talking about today. Synchronize first and then work towards speed. Now, what that means is start slow, then go as fast as you possibly can, go off the rails, and finish clean. Fast, but clean. So slow, fast, clean. That's my mantra here. So if we're moving on to the next exercise here, the second exercise is really designed to be similar to a chromatic exercise. We do variations on this in the studio all the time. We call it the spider exercise. But this actually focuses on just one string. And the point is that you're going to be able to dial in your left hand, right hand coordination and work on bursts of speed and not have to worry about crossing strings. So this exercise really is there to help you build speed, and like I said, start slow, play as fast as you can, including with some missed notes, and then dial it back and play at a speed that's comfortable, fast, and clean. So as I said before, it's okay if it gets a little bit out in front of you. That's not a worry. But start here, where we're going to start on the 5th fret again. Once again, if it's more comfortable to start higher up on the fretboard, you can do that. So we're going to start on the 5th fret, and we're going to just play these in order. Now focus on your alternate picking on this. This is always a good exercise here. So down, up, and then as you slide up to the 9th fret, so one of the things that really happens with this, and I want to make sure you're watching out for, is when you slide up to that 9th fret, you're intentionally picking it. It's really easy to do this and slide on that last note. Don't worry about that here. What I want you to focus on is just making sure that alternate picking, and focus on that coordination. Make it nice and smooth, and then you can start speeding it up a little bit. The next exercise here in these tabs that like I said, you can follow along with these. If you haven't already downloaded them, go for it. We've got the Guitar Pro and the PDF here. The next exercise is actually now gonna work on the string transition for you. Still use that alternate picking, down, up, down, up, down, and now we're gonna... So now it's gonna force you to play that with your pinky. So you're working on the string transition with your first finger, as well as the string transition with the pinky. Now, the idea here is to maybe start with 8th notes, work on building up your speed until you can get to 16th notes. There's a whole bunch of variations and different ways that you can approach this, but this is a good one to just start building that speed. Now, the next exercise that I've got here for you is similar to these others, but the whole point is to start building your trem picking. And trem picking's a little bit different, and if you look at the picture here, you'll notice what happens when I play slow at first. My wrist is primarily involved. Now, I like to brace my hand. I prefer to brace it sort of up here, or maybe on the back of my wrist, kind of right here, like that. Now, other people, you might find it easier to brace using your fingers, maybe even hooking on the pickups there in order to just kind of get that speed. Now, whatever's comfortable. I do usually encourage that because when you're floating, it's a lot harder to maintain the accuracy. Some people are absolutely adamant that that's the only way to do it. I disagree. I think you can float or you can brace. Do what's convenient. I have found that bracing is what's going to give you the fastest results. So here, with this one, I want to start just with that normal alternate picking. I'm just going to play 4 notes, 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and like that, and then repeat. But when we start bringing in the trem picking, what happens with the trem picking, I'm going to start using my arm, but the wrist has to stay loose. I always like to use the illustration, it's similar to a bullwhip, that you kind of have to have that loose wrist in order to make it snap there at the end. And if you think of your arm as kind of being the big motion and then the pick coming all the way down to that tiny motion. So that trem picking then starts to, and it looks like my wrist is really stiff, but it's still being controlled here by my forearm. That forearm kind of comes in, and just to give you an example of what that trem picking looks like. And that's ultimately the goal that you want to get out of that last exercise, is be able to play those as fast as you can and make those smooth transitions. It's tricky to make the transitions while you're doing that trem picking and still have it be clean. You want to avoid notes that are going to kind of end up dead sounding or sort of flubbed while you're doing the trem picking, and it's really easy to have at least 1 or 2. So focus on that transition. And the way I usually encourage my students to go about doing that is to have a look at what you're playing here, and then as you're playing that, consciously think to yourself, okay, I'm gonna eyeball that next finger and go, okay, ready, 1 E and a 2, and maybe even make that transition really minute, that ba-da-da-da-da, and make sure you're playing that second note effectively and in time with your right hand. Now, the last exercise is a diagonal picking exercise. Again, there's a lot of variations on this. I've played a lot of variations on them, but I'm going to start you with probably the easiest one to wrap your head around and probably the simplest to go ahead and play. However, it's going to challenge you a little bit for a couple of different reasons. We're going to change it up and we're going to do some different types of picking. So first, again, I've written it here in the 5th position. Feel free to play it wherever you need to. You can play it further down if you want to get some stretching in, or you can play it further up if it's just easier for you to get your fingers in the right position. So with this, as I play them, I'm actually going to keep my fingers down. Part of the reason is it helps me keep them in the right position and helps me stay honest in my right hand. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to alternate pick this, which makes it a little bit tricky. So you'll notice that I'll play this one down and then this one up, down, up. Some people refer to this as outside picking because you're picking on the outside of the strings as you ascend. It's alternate picking. Whether you want to think about it outside or inside, it's entirely up to you. So we've got this. And now I'm going to switch up to here. So same thing, I'm starting on a downstroke. And that covers what a lot of people would refer to as inside picking. So picking in between adjacent strings as opposed to outside of those adjacent strings. Now, what's important about this though is again the synchronization. So you're linking everything up here. Now that ending there is a slight variation on it, but ultimately the goal here is that you're getting that alternate picking across strings. You can also sweep pick it or economy pick it, and maybe that's a good way to start when you're trying to build that dexterity and just get your fingers used to moving across the strings instead of just in line with the strings. So the economy picking version is in there in the tabs as well. Feel free to check that out. It's a little bit easier to start with, but I do definitely encourage you to move on to the alternate picking because it really forces you to be accurate with your picking. So hopefully you guys have found this helpful. Happy New Year. It's going to be great to continue to build guitar skills. I'm excited for being able to communicate some of these things for you guys, and I will see you next time.